Good morning. Good to be with y'all.
It's good to have you as well. So, when you hear COVID rescue, you think, oh, that's great. All the money is going to go to COVID. But when you look at what's included, it looks like the $15 per hour minimum wage is in there, $270 million for arts and humanities, $200 million for museums and libraries, $50 million for family planning, and $112 million for Bay Area rapid transit funding in Nancy Pelosi's district. It doesn't look like all that money is going to COVID.
Right. It gets worse than that, unfortunately, when you look at the bill that Pelosi's bringing this week. Less than 10% of the money in this massive $1.9 trillion bill is for health-related items. I thought this was supposed to be about recovering from COVID. Start with the biggest item, $350 billion to bail out failed states. Look, California just announced a surplus of $10 billion, and they're going to get probably tens more billion from this bill. New York State. We had an amendment to require New York to report the nursing home death data that Governor Cuomo's been covering up, the major scandal in New York. Do you know that every Democrat, including the Democrats from New York, voted against requiring that Cuomo has to disclose the nursing home death data to get tens of billions of dollars for New York? This is in the bill. Again, minimum wage, you mentioned the $15 minimum wage. What does that have to do with COVID relief? In fact, for small businesses who are dying on the vine, like that heartbreaking story you just, Ainsley just talked about, those small businesses are going to have an even harder time coming back when you go to a $15 minimum wage. These things have nothing to do with COVID. The school bill, this should be about helping schools safely reopen so kids can be learning in the classroom. We've seen the studies, the damage that is being done long term to the children in this country, millions of kids, when maybe 40% of all Americans are back in the classroom learning every day. Every single student should be and can be learning. The president's press secretary yesterday, Jen Psaki, on a news show admitted that the money doesn't even have to be used to reopen schools. Over $100 billion to go to schools, not to reopen. In fact, 95% of that money can't even be spent until 2022. Do you really want to wait until 2022 to start having your kid go back in school? This bill actually will delay school reopening. This is crazy.
How did that $15 minimum wage get back in there? Because remember, a few weeks ago, Bernie Sanders even said this is not the right time to do it.
Well, Bernie Sanders and the far left have been wanting to do this for a long time. This has been a big cause of AOC, who helped write this bill. So, again, this is where the socialist left and the unions have literally driven this bill. This bill should be about helping kids get back in school. Instead, it's about bowing to the teachers' unions who don't want kids to be back in school when all the science and the CDC director said, get the kids back in the classroom. It's important for their mental health. Suicides are up. Depression is up. Kids aren't learning as well. But they're going to keep holding those millions of kids behind in this bill. It's a national crisis, and it's a national disgrace.
And President Biden and Anthony Fauci will not even just come out and just say kids belong back in school. They're still playing politics with it. You got $129 billion for schools with no demand, on the other hand, to reopen the schools. You're not going to be able to even spend this money into 22 between 2022 and 2028. They haven't spent the billions they have right now. Here's Randy Weingarten. She's president of the American Federation of Teachers. And she thinks New York has the perfect template from the way the rest of the country should do it. Listen to her.
I do actually want to debunk this myth that teacher unions, at least our union, doesn't want to reopen schools.
Is this school year probably not going to have full school openings?
What does full school opening mean? If you do 6 feet of physical distancing, you're essentially saying in a school you're going to have about 50% or 60% of people in there at any one time, not 100%. We need to actually try to get as much in person as possible right now. Have the mitigation strategies. Have a real great summer semester to get kids' mojo back in a voluntary way, and then really be planning for next year.
All right, so she's saying, I don't know what mojo means in terms of school curriculum, but is she saying put the kids back in school in the summer? Fall.
Yeah, where's accountability, by the way? That's what kids want. They want to be back in the classroom. Why not have money in this bill for school choice? If your local school system wants to
point.
take your money and not educate your kid in the classroom, shouldn't you be able to take that money?
Because,
and go
Steve,
next
you know
door
the
where
answer
they're
to
doing it?
that. It's because the unions are involved. They have no interest in that.
Absolutely.
So this is my hope is not there aren't Democratic or Republican parents. There are just parents. And there's only one party kissing up to the unions to keep those kids at home, and it's the Democratic Party. Somehow that's got to be made clear.
Absolutely. And they're undermining the science. Remember, Joe Biden said follow the science until the science said safely reopen the schools, and you can do it today, not 2022.
It's gutless.
And then Biden sidelined the CDC director. There's over $1 trillion still left unspent. We don't need another $1.9 trillion of debt that goes to our kids. Our kids will pay this debt. This is a disaster for our young
leaders
kids.
to say kids need to go back in school. They have to do something that's right instead of political. And Anthony Fauci should lead that charge. He knows that's the right answer, but he's covering for this administration in a way he would never do for Donald Trump. It is really disheartening, to say the least. Congressman, thanks so much.
These kids are being left behind. Let's reopen our schools. Let's vote against this bill. Thank you.
All right.